Tokyo 2126, the city that learned to live without humans at the beginning of the 21st century, Tokyo was called the capital of the future, a city where technology appeared earlier than anywhere else in the world. Robots in convenience stores, automated trains arriving to the second, capsule hotels stacked like cells in a living organism. The world looked at Tokyo as a preview of tomorrow, a place where the future had already landed and decided to stay. But the future is not only technology, it is demography, psychology, culture, and most importantly, it is the long shadow of decisions made quietly, gradually, long before their consequences become impossible to ignore. 100 years have passed. And today, Tokyo is no longer a city of neon dreams and restless crowds. It is one of the most rational cities ever built, and at the same time, one of the loneliest. Japan's population decline did not arrive like a disaster. There were no sirens, no sudden collapse. It was slow, almost polite, a demographic fading that economists, sociologists, and governments predicted for decades. Fewer children each year, more elderly, more silence. Tokyo did not fight this trend. It adjusted to it. Urban planning algorithms reshaped the city without drama. Residential density was reduced. Entire districts were preserved but emptied. Buildings remained intact, maintained by automated systems, but human presence faded. Some areas became dormant zones, kept alive only by infrastructure. Others transformed into autonomous clusters designed for a fraction of their former population. The city became wider, calmer, more breathable, and yet this new spaciousness felt less like freedom and more like absence. Architecture followed the same logic. Tokyo no longer tried to impress the eye. There was no need for spectacle. The goal became stability, control, psychological comfort. Living spaces evolved into permanent modular capsules, optimized not for community, but for individual endurance. Each capsule responds to its inhabitant in real time. Light adjusts to circadian rhythms. Walls dampen unwanted sound. Air composition adapts to emotional stress levels. Visual environments change depending on mental fatigue. The system knows when silence is needed and when the simulation of another presence might prevent psychological collapse. Physical space shrank to the minimum required for biological maintenance. Digital space expanded infinitely. In Tokyo of 2126, daily life rarely requires stepping outside. Work exists almost entirely in virtual environments. Goods are delivered automatically. Medical diagnostics are continuous and remote, with nanometric sensors transmitting health data to centralized systems. Entertainment is immersive, neural, and tailored precisely to individual emotional profiles. Even movement has been abstracted. Physical exercise is often performed in virtual landscapes, where the body moves but the mind travels elsewhere. The street, once the heart of urban life, has become a corridor. Infrastructure without narrative. A space you pass through, not a place where life unfolds. People still go outside sometimes, not because they must, but because memory tells them it once mattered. Tokyo's economy is celebrated as one of the most efficient systems ever created. Production is fully automated. Logistics operate without interruption. Financial markets are managed by predictive models beyond human comprehension. Human labor, once the engine of growth, has become statistically inefficient. The government eventually accepted this reality. Universal basic income was introduced not as a social experiment or a gesture of generosity, but as compensation. A formal acknowledgement that most citizens were no longer economically necessary. Survival no longer depends on work, but identity still does. To prevent psychological erosion, new forms of employment emerged. Jobs designed not to produce value, but to preserve meaning. People monitor artificial intelligence systems that do not require supervision. They curate virtual worlds already optimized by algorithms. They participate in long-term social simulations whose outcomes are irrelevant. The result does not matter. Participation does. The illusion of contribution becomes essential to mental stability. Japan's struggle with loneliness did not begin in the future. It existed long before. But by 2126, loneliness is no longer considered a disorder. It is recognized as a stable mode of existence, supported by infrastructure. AI companions are deeply personalized systems. They learn emotional patterns, adapt conversational styles, evolve alongside their users. They provide affirmation without conflict, presence without demand, intimacy without risk. They never leave. For many citizens of Tokyo, this form of connection feels safer than relationships with other humans. Unpredictable, emotionally costly, and fragile. The structure of family dissolved quietly. Biological kinship lost its central role. Parenthood became rare, deliberate, and highly regulated. Children who are born are often raised within state-managed developmental environments. Artificial intelligence monitors cognitive development, adjusts learning stimuli, and ensures emotional balance. Attachment is carefully distributed to avoid dependency. Parents remain involved, but from a distance. Emotional intensity is treated as a variable to be controlled. Education followed the same path. Traditional schools disappeared. Learning became a continuous, individualized process guided by algorithms. Knowledge is delivered as modular experiences rather than subjects. There are no teachers in the old sense. Human instruction is considered biased, inconsistent, inefficient. Artificial intelligence determines what each person must know and when, not to inspire curiosity, but to maintain functionality. Culture, too, transformed. The most noticeable change is the absence of chaos. Art is generated by neural networks analyzing global preference data. Music adapts in real time to listeners' emotional states. Fashion is optimized statistically. Originality is not forbidden, but it is discouraged. It introduces unpredictability, and unpredictability is a risk. Street culture exists only in controlled zones. Protest has not disappeared, but it has migrated into digital environments where it cannot disrupt physical stability. Expression is allowed, as long as it remains measurable. Crime in Tokyo is almost non-existent. Predictive systems identify behavioral anomalies long before they manifest as violence. But with danger eliminated, extremes vanished as well. Passion dulled, emotional edges softened. The city became safe and sterile. At night, Tokyo barely glows. Neon still exists, but stripped of excess. Light is functional, not expressive. The city no longer tries to be seen. Tourism has declined sharply. Why travel to a place when its digital twin offers the same experience without friction, discomfort, or unpredictability? Tokyo in 2126 is not a dystopia in the traditional sense. There is no collapse, no oppression, no visible suffering. It is a carefully balanced system that solved nearly every technical problem humanity once feared. But in doing so, it quietly removed the need for other people. This is a future without catastrophe, without hunger, without violence, without chaos, and possibly without life as we once understood it. The question is not whether Tokyo will become like this. The question is simpler and far more uncomfortable. If this is the most efficient version of the future, is efficiency enough to make it human?